Hi everybody, my name is Nev of One Deal Away, and about a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago at this point, I can't remember, I did a video where I talked a little bit about kind of like what's happening with the stock markets. And I typically focus on physical assets because I believe that we have much greater control, and I believe that those are true assets that provide us with unlimited income over unlimited amount of time, because I've always been a proponent of why would you want to buy something, hope and pray that it goes up in the value so that you can sell it at some point in the future to be able to live? Because my question always was, what happens when we run out of things to sell in order to make our income? Well, we have to go back to a job, and that is hoping and praying that jobs actually exist and that we are healthy enough to be able to do it, and that somebody would actually want to hire us. Those things are incredibly risky in my opinion, so I'd rather work on creating my own job and my own business that maybe I can start hiring people that will work for me so that I can truly retire, meaning I don't have to work in order to make money, that I can acquire assets that regardless whether they go up in value or not, I am still making money off of it. And for all of that, you need financial education, and that is probably why you are here. So let's talk about that video that I talked about, kind of what is going on with the financial assets. And I have a hard time calling it assets, to be honest with you, because it's heavily manipulated. It really is a Wall Street casino. I've been calling it that way for years now because that's really what's happening. No matter how many times you play, you might win every so often, but the house never loses. But most people are in it through IRAs, 401ks, retirement funds. Some people are speculating in it, and that is the only thing that is being pushed to us through the mass media as like the only way that you can actually invest. That is absolutely wrong, but people subscribe to it. So because a lot of people, well over 50% of population in the United States, have actually some money, if not substantial amount of money, in the Wall Street casino, I want to talk about kind of what has happened. So here's where we were before kind of where the video ended. So this is over here price, this over here is time, right? And we had sort of like a market kind of happening this way, then it kind of stalled. Then we had this big old drop over in March, right? Then what I had predicted is that it would come to some sort of bottom, then it would go up in value and hit some sort of top. And this over here is what I called a fake out, also known as the sucker's rally. You want to know that because this is kind of where we are today. Okay, now what happens from here, and this is not me or making up theory or whatever, this is me following what historically happens with market like this. So you've noticed that the market kept going up and going in this direction even though unemployment numbers were, well, this should be employment numbers. Unemployment numbers were going through the roof. Literally speaking, this is what ended up happening with unemployment numbers, y'all. You had this sort of, right? So this is the number of people unemployed. This was sort of the time component as well. And you had something like this of like da 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 happening, and then you have this little spike, which end up typically being within the gray chart, the gray sort of shaded area, which is the recession. Then it kind of drops and nothing happens. Then it kind of goes up, and then you had another recession. And you can pull these charts over from the Fed. That's right. They actually provide this information. And so this is kind of what's happening. And I've shared some of these videos with you earlier, but this is kind of what was going on. And then we had what interesting thing. Then we had something like this where it was like 3 million. And then the following week we had something like this where it was like 6.8 8 million, I want to say. And then we had something like this where it was like 6.6 million. And then we just had something like this where it was like 5 point something, I can't remember, million, right? And so you had this like everything down here was kind of staying flattish, right? Even the heights of it. And now we have this like huge, literally off the chart unemployment. But what's happening with the market? Oh, it was going up. How is that even possible? So this is the part where I say it's heavily manipulated because the Fed, which is our central bank, has been pumping a lot of money. We're talking trillions of dollars that are being pumped, and a lot of it is ending here. But there have been development just like I have suspected is going to be, not because I'm a genius, but because I've spent some time learning about how markets behave. And we are, as I said, we're right here. So what is going on right now is you want to pay attention. Okay, so I'm going to actually zoom in on this to kind of explain what's been going on. So market actually was going up like this, and then it would kind of go up and it would kind of go down and sort of sideways and kind of go down and kind of go up and sideways and then up. And then it had this like ridiculously good run, right? There were all these news reports that was like, this is the best bull market ever since like 1938, since like 1974, since like 1987, whatever, right? All of this like super hype, super hype, super hype, super hype. This is very normal in this time, okay? But it is still a sucker's market, sucker's rally, because what I've noticed is that the momentum of this is actually slowing down. It's actually, the curve kind of went up like this, and then it started to sort of slow down. This is normal. It's hitting this sort of peak that I've been expecting, and then what next comes is that if this was a bottom right here, this is that part that I'm talking about. This is that what happened at the end of March, right before that March 23rd, I want to say, when it started to go back up, which we expected. It's starting to slow down, and I don't know the exact date, so I apologize for that. But what is going to happen next is that this puppy is going to start going down, and it's going to surpass this level, and it's going to go down into way deeper territory. So if you have not sold, right, if we look at this, if you have not sold here and you've not sold here, and you sort of waited, and now we're kind of here, this is not going to end this way. It just can't. The reason that it can't is because of this. This is highly important, and the news agencies are reporting it, but they're reporting it as sort of like two different worlds. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but we all live in one world. There's only one planet. There's only one financial system. There's only one humanity. And this impacts this. It has to, it always has, and it always will. So this is going to start happening. I don't know the exact date. Maybe it's going to come up this coming week. Maybe it's going to develop over the course of next few months. But the overall trend is going to go down because it has to, unless the Fed ends up doing something they have never done, because they have done a lot of things they have never done. For example, they're buying junk bonds. Sometimes they're called like high yield bonds. But high yield is a fancy name for junk. This is the bonds that are given by the corporations that are bringing no money, no value. They cannot make good on those loans. And so what has Fed done? Well, they hired the thing called BlackRock. And I'm just going to put BR here for that as a short code for it. BlackRock was a developer, was a group that went out and bought massive amounts of real estate in 2009, 10, and 11, had sort of flipped it to individuals like you and me to get into, and they have sold everything out of it. They're completely out of the whole thing, and now they have been hired by the Fed to actually use the special purpose vehicles, SPVs is what they're known, to actually go in and start buying money, because Fed cannot legally do that, but they can hire a company to do that legally. So Fed puts money into SPV, okay? Then gives the control of it to a third party, BlackRock in this case, and then they can go in and put money into things. And they're not only just buying these junk bonds, right? This like high high return or high yield, low value bonds, but they're actually be able to go in and buy ETFs. Okay? Now, ETF is exchange traded fund, and it's sort of kind of like a weird mixture of like a mutual fund, but it's robo traded, and it's typically has a little bit lower expenses. It's heavily manipulated, heavily leveraged. It's another form of derivative, but they have a lot of ETFs that are following these like high yield, aka junk bonds. And so BlackRock, I don't know if you know this or not, but BlackRock owns an ETF that is heavily invested, heavily in the junk bond world. And you know what? When they have a control of the SPV and they can buy whatever, they will be bailing out their own ETF. You can call it fraud all day you want, and you would be right, but legally they can actually do it. So unless Fed starts creating more SPVs that allow us now to go into the market, meaning buy stocks that have no value whatsoever, we will likely see the market go down. Now they can try. I don't know if they're going to be successful. I have no clue what they're going to do. I do believe that they will do whatever they can to try to preserve it, but at this point, because it's so heavily manipulated, they will do whatever they can to get as many of us as poor as possible. I know that sounds horrible, but I have to say it, in order to make places like BlackRock as rich as possible. That's how the game is played, and this is the reason why I'm not necessarily in these markets, because it's rigged and it's wrong, and I agree with you. And the only way to actually vote is to get out. Get out, stop playing the game, because if all of us step away and stop playing the game, they can't win. It is that simple, y'all. Now, I know you're thinking, well, wait a minute, Nev. Like, I can't have cash because it's being devalued, and I can't, get into the market, and how am I going to invest? Because my income is not going up, because the employers are not, right? Like, the income hasn't kept pace with the inflation of what's happening within the asset class since the last crash of 2008, right? I agree with you, but there are different ways to invest that are outside of the market, and that's in physical assets that you can actually hold, like this marker. Now, I'm not saying don't invest in a market. That's not necessarily an asset, although it could be potentially if you make a business out of it. What I'm saying is you want to have something physical that you can touch, that you can control, because if I own this marker, right, this marker right here, if I own it, I can do whatever I want with it within legal spectrum, right? I can hold on to it. I can maybe rent it to somebody else to use it for their videos. I can sell it. I can start being very creative when I own a particular asset. When I just put money at some sort of brokerage house or give it to a third party that supposedly knows better, but most of the third parties may or may not know better, y'all. But what they will do is they will use your asset to make benefit for themselves, and whether you win or lose, it doesn't matter, because they make money on the transaction of the whole thing. Again, it's rigged and it's wrong, and I don't believe that we should be doing that nor subscribing for that. I believe that each one of us is smart enough to spend a little bit of time, which we're all locked up so you can't go anywhere anyways, Spend some time learning about it. Spend some time about different vehicles that can get you to your end goal of investing and creating income for yourself that is outside of the market, that is outside of what is being rigged, that is outside of somebody else's control of your money. Because at the end of the day, y'all, it's your money anyways, right? And who should care more about your money than you? It shouldn't be somebody else, because guess what? They don't. They don't. Most of them don't have obligation legally, morally, maybe ethically or morally they should, but they don't, to take care of your money like it was their own. Most of them are not legally obliged to do that, but you should be morally and ethically obliged to do that for yourself and become a sovereign individual. Look, a big part of the problem, and I'm not going to get into the politics over here. You can believe whatever you want. You can subscribe to whomever you want. I'm not like on one spectrum of anything. If I was anything, I would probably call myself very loosely a libertarian to a degree. But, I believe in sovereign power. I believe in sovereign power for a country, for a city, and for individuals. I don't control a country. I don't control a city, nor do I want to, okay? But I do have an ability to control myself, and I'm a huge proponent of sovereign ability to take care of yourself. Big part of the problem where we have faced with ourselves is that we have expatriated a lot of our production, a lot of our sources, a lot of our knowledge, a lot of our everything to every country in the world in the hopes of saving a penny or a dollar. And then we found ourselves where we are today in 2020, when China actually ended up closing out. We couldn't get the masks. We couldn't get the cleaning supplies. We couldn't get the pills. We couldn't get the gloves. We couldn't get anything because all of that is being manufactured in China. And I have nothing against China, y'all. I have nothing against doing global business, but I do have an issue where you put all of your eggs into everybody else's basket and expect that they will watch them the way you would, because that's not how it works. When things go great, maybe we do that. But at the end of the day, I believe that we as human beings, human race, are built in sort of the self-preservation methodology. Meaning, when things get rough, you gotta take care of yourself first. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be helping somebody, because you should. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, you got to protect yourself first so that you can help everybody else. If you are drowning, you can't help another person who is drowning, right? So the same methodology goes for money, for economy, for wealth, for food, for everything. And people are starting to wake up, and that is the most beautiful thing in the world, where we're starting to plant our own food and figure out how to grow our own stuff. And we're sewing our own masks today, whether you subscribe to it or not. And we're starting to figure out what is our own economic standard that needs to be, and how do we start thinking for ourselves and behaving in a manner that we can actually help ourselves and our family and our community to actually thrive through whatever it is that is happening, whether things are going down, up, or sideways. That is true financial intelligence, and that is what I want to do for you through these videos. They are free for a reason, and I know that some people are not going to watch this. Actually, a lot of people are probably not going to watch this, and I know some people are not going to subscribe to it, and I know some people are not going to take any action whatsoever, and that's okay. That is okay. This is why a handful of individuals that do take action end up performing way better. Because, action without knowledge is stupid. I've said that before, and I still stand behind it. Knowledge without action is useless. And I always said, well, you don't want to be stupid. You don't want to be useless. So how do we do it? You get some knowledge, and you start taking action that makes sense for you. For me, it makes sense to get out of heavily manipulated things that is really meant to make the rich people richer and impoverish everybody else under the premise and a promise that maybe at some point in the future you could collect a few dollars, which they can't guarantee. And likelihood of everything that is happening, aside from this, aside from this, aside from Corona, there is millions of people that are going to be retiring, if they can, in the 2020s, unless they'll get let go of and land on this chart over here, which is going to drive the prices here down. It has to. Simple math and economics says it has to. This is the time where you want to learn the best ways to get into the physical assets at a super low price to be able to actually start accumulating wealth in a sovereign way where you can take care of yourself, your family, your network, and your community. Thanks for watching. Please do share these videos with people that you believe this could help with. Subscribe to the channel. And until next time, stay forever money blessed. And do remember, you are only one deal away. I want you to be happy. Don't you want to be happy? I want to be happy.